Hi, thanks for tuning in to Gabbing with Girlfriends. I'm Gloria Butler, and surprise, surprise, my girlfriend today isn't even a girl. Kind of like a girlfriend, but he's not a girl. So this will be my first. Well, since this is a new podcast for me anyway, a new podcast series for me. It's all new, but I'm so excited about this. I used to manage this guy's band. They were called Gravity Kills. They are called Gravity Kills. They've just had a several year hiatus. So this is very exciting to speak to him because we also haven't spoken properly for years. So you'll be listening to us, good, bad, or indifferent, catching up. So I look forward to welcoming Jeff Scheel, who will be joining us in a minute. I hope everybody's having a nice week. And I wish I would have put notice up, because I'm sure there's people out there that would love to ask questions of Jeff or some of the other guys. So I'm sure this will be a part one, and then Jeff will come back, or one of the other guys will come on and answer some questions that you guys write into my social media, which is Gabbing with Girlfriends on Instagram, and Gabbing with GFS, because girlfriends was too big of a word, on Twitter. So please, anyway, even if it's not Gravity Kills related, please send me some things you'd like to talk about, or things you'd like me to talk about, and questions or topics or whatever, because I'm really easy and this is how I pass my time. So I'll eventually not have anything to talk about or any friends left. So I'll need plenty to talk about. And so yeah, all the help you can give me would be awesome. So Jeff will be here any second. And yeah, I'm excited. I hope his daughter gets to stick her head in and say hi too. That would be lovely. Her name's Willow, and I can't believe she's all grown up, and I don't know her. That's super, super, super sad to me. But I don't even know where the time goes. That's sad to me too. There we go.
Yeah.
So Jeff Scheel, how are you?
I'm good, Gloria Butler.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm really good.
Everything's good. What's new in your life? I don't even know where to begin after 312 years.
What's new? Yeah, in the last 2 years, I got remarried. I got a 17-year-old, in high school. After all this time in our connection, now all of a sudden, we're finally getting the first record out on vinyl.
Isn't that cool?
That's super so exciting.
Cool. Yeah.
And I know that you probably have some things to talk about, but that in particular took us forever to, once we got the Orchard's attention, just getting their attention, because, it's like, okay, yeah, you guys are that band with that one song from the movie and whatever.
No. It's them. It isn't you. It's them. And I mean, I do things with them anyway too. And that's just them. And I like them. And I think they do a good job at what they do. And you would think that they're understaffed because they're not really on top of everything the way they should be. But I don't even think they are. I think they're really well staffed. But I have to tell you this, and then you have to finish telling that story.
Okay.
I actually had to go in there for a meeting. Do you know where their office is? Did we already talk about this?
It's the old TVT office.
I know, isn't that funny?
That's weird.
I didn't know till I got there. I knew the address looked familiar.
Yeah, you're real
good. Yeah.
But that's super
awesome.
funny. Yeah, super funny. So anyway, we finally got their attention with the help of John Perrone, former TVT employee, because he and Gary J had been, they've always championed the band and stuff. Yeah. And so John reached out to me and said, you should talk to this guy. And so emailed him. He got another guy involved. We were good to go. Doug found the actual files, the pre-mastered mixes that we did at Battery. Well,
how?
I don't know, because Doug had the computer system that we did the first record on, monitors, like everything. So he sets everything up. Everything's great, except now he can't figure out how to get these mixes that are trapped in a technology that is 25 years old into, say, Pro Tools. Right.
Yeah.
So it took him literally 18 months, parts for them to engineer parts to get these mixes. And then it still didn't work because every time, the first record had all these transitions that we did. Okay. So anybody who's listening, maybe you'll go listen to the first record and you'll hear the transitions.
You totally should,
right.
Because it's still one of my all-time favorites.
It's
of anybody.
Yeah, and I'm super proud of that record. So, and I'm proud of all of them. But so the transitions is where all of a sudden the computers couldn't handle the dialogue. And there was this breakdown. So then Doug just got creative and he just chopped out all the songs as far as they would go into the transitions, then took the mastered transitions because the levels are lower. And he just inserted those mastered transitions within the unmastered, final mixes. And so they'll be undetectable because, really, there's such a low volume that you won't hear, oh, this is, anyway, Doug was brilliant and Doug's always been brilliant. And they came up with that. And it's finally, I think the last emails I saw, they were, Doug had already paid for the mastering and the Orchard was trying to figure out how to reimburse Doug. And that's where we're at. And we don't know at this point. We're looking at a summer 2023 release. We were hoping, that was going to be like a 25-year thing, that we were going to have it coincide with the 25-year anniversary of the record. But then the technology didn't cooperate and we weren't able to do it. But I think we'd kind of almost left it for dead, but just Doug never gave up.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. And it's cool the way, because I told you via text, we would have not, or maybe it was, however we were communicating, we wouldn't have released it had we just had the mastered mixes for a compact disc, because those mixes, back in those days, Gloria, all these rock records were just mixed to be super loud and super undynamic. And they were just, as I described to you, there's been these blocks of noise just making the needle just jump off the vinyl. And we were just going to like, okay, we're fine. We're just never going to do it. It's fine. Then it's going to be really cool. And, we got to pick out the vinyl color and do all that cool, kind of wedding shower in a way, kind of, stuff. And Kurt had even down to Kurt, the actual artwork for the first record in these huge, stuff that you would back then scan, because, didn't have big enough computers to house these files. He had the actual artwork that they would
How did
scan.
he get that?
Who knows? I mean, Kurt's crafty when it comes to those things.
I was like, I don't even remember that. I thought I was good at making sure I swiped everything.
Yeah, and Kurt swiped all that stuff. I mean, the fact that we even had the mixes to begin with.
No, that's a miracle. That's crazy.
Because the Orchard, forget it. Once TVT went belly up in 2007, it happened on my birthday, by the way. That's how I remember it. When they filed for bankruptcy, and then all that stuff went, woo, and who knows where the masters ended up in they're probably, because it finished that record to 2-inch. So those tapes are probably, they were long gone eons ago and whatever. So anyway.
And do you speak to Tommy at all?
Tommy Sarag, I don't, but occasionally he'll pop up on social media and, I'll tag him in things, and, just like I tag you and stuff too, stuff that'll pop up that, it's like, hey, these people were part of it. And, and I've kind of watched, but no, Tommy and I, in fact, I was just looking at something. When we got the first, we weren't even signed with them yet. And the whole story.
Yeah, I want to relive part of that story.
Okay.
It's such a crazy story.
But Tommy sent me no, I guess we weren't signed yet, but we'd finished the record, and we'll go into that story. But Tommy sent the Mortal Kombat CD to my house with a note, just said, and I still have the note, and I have it down here on a bookshelf.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
yeah, and I was just looking at that as I was preparing, to talk to you today, and I was actually very, very rock and roll way. I was dusting today because it's Sunday and I got stuff to do. It has nothing to do with us talking about music. But anyway, so Tommy's, I've watched Tommy, and I haven't got to talk to him. There's lots of those people I haven't got to talk to. John Perone I've talked to. Gary J I've talked to. In fact,
Me too.
Kurt Kearns, he's run into because Kurt's got a business in Austin as well. And so Kurt he used to go to South by Southwest every year, and he'd run into those guys all the time, and they'd send me pictures, and it's like, hey, all the guys are together, and I'd sit there and
Good old times.
yeah. So, but I would like to be in touch. I try to be in touch as much as I can with any of those people, the Alex Lukes of the world, and the Jim McGuinns, and all those people that were big.
Do you talk to them? Do you talk to Jim or Alex?
I haven't talked to them or Alex. I occasionally, will bounce stuff with them. And I always try to acknowledge if something pops up, how important, we'll talk about the story, but there were these links in a chain that if you took one of those links out, the band never happens. And I don't know there's a lot of bands that can tell, I'm sure that every band has a story, but ours is just maybe beyond, it sounds made up.
It sounds made up, and it sounds like crazy fate, and just like it shouldn't have ever happened, really. It's just one of those things, because you weren't a band, you were 4 individuals, and which is a great story. So I'll let you start.
Okay, so it's a Wednesday night.
How do you know that? How do you remember that?
I just do. I'm the guy. I'm sort of the band historian too. Like if and you understand this. You were out on the road with us from time to time. I wasn't the guy who was jumping into a 12-pack of beer after the show.
No, you weren't.
And so, or whatever bands jump into after shows. So
those days.
Yeah. So anyway, so it was a Wednesday night. I get a call from, and it's Kurt, and I'll try to make this as brief as I can. They're working on a track. KP&T in St. Louis is putting together a compilation for local bands.
Which at the time was a huge, important alternative radio station.
Yeah. It's a top 20 market, and it's big. And at the time, you guys had people like Alex Luke there, Jim McGuinn was there. Anyway, so they call me. I'm like, great. I listened to the track for the first time over the phone. And back then it's, it's a landline. I'm like, all I hear is, I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is, but we'll fly up. I flew up the next afternoon. It wasn't actually afternoon because they put me on the cheapest flight they could, which was a puddle jumper from Dallas, Fort Worth to St. Louis. And one of the stops was like Mountain Home, Arkansas. So I'm taking like crazy Cooters, airline to get to St. Louis. I get to St. Louis, get in. They take me to eat. I get in the studio about 8:30 at night. Part of the fate was in this studio they had a basketball court in the soundstage.
What was that then?
It was called the play. It was called the Playroom. It was just out 40 and Vandeventer.
Oh,
There's a big post office, big U.S. post office service. Anyway, for anybody from St. Louis, they may know where it's at. So anyway, so I walk in, and they were in there playing basketball after, like, Kurt and I went to dinner. We came in, the guys were playing basketball. They throw me the ball. I don't know. I'm like, 15 or 20 feet away from the basket. Throw a shot up, nothing but net. Swish. And this is a true part of the story. So we're like, stop, let's get in. So I listened to the track for the first time, and it's pretty much the track that but there's no vocals. So anyway, we listened down some stuff. I'm kind of scatting some vocals, coming up with some melodies. And it was Matt who said, it sounds like you're saying I'm guilty. Done. So I run off to another room, write some.
But what were you saying?
I think I was saying, no, I don't know. I was saying something just phonetic. At times I was saying filthy. I was saying whatever.
Yeah.
And it just, and so Matt Matt heard that and his ears perked up, and then we just locked in. And then I went to a separate room. I wrote these lyrics. Okay, so anyway, we finished the song, submitted at 5:00. Right before 5:00 was the deadline of the submission for KPNT.
It's for they were doing a CD.
Right, Point Essential Volume 1.
Yes.
For charity.
Local talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're selling it for charity. There were 2,500 copies. Once the copies were gone, they weren't, nothing was going to be pressed again. We weren't even the first single added from that CD.
What was, do you remember?
I think it might have been that Finns track. If you know the CD, go back and listen to it. There was a track by the Finns, and it wasn't even the Urge. I mean, if you're from St. Louis, I mean, we used to joke like the Urge is the biggest band in St. Louis, and maybe for a time we were the biggest band from St. Louis. And so the Urge is on there, and and so anyway, by the time they get to this third, Jim and Alex made this decision just to add the track. And then that's where it starts climbing. These guys are telling me, we're 14, we're number 8, we're number 3, whatever. And I'm like, whatever, because I'm living in Dallas at the time. I'm thinking, I'm like,
whatever that means.
Right, whatever any of that means. So we're in my day job.
But wait, I have to interrupt a second.
Yes.
So where did the name Gravity Kills come from? How did that happen?
Oh, okay. So we were in the studio that night, and they basically just told me that, hey, we're going to call this Gravity Kills. I was like, hey, great, because coming up with a band name is, super hard.
A nightmare, yeah.
And how it goes is Doug, who worked at the studio, did a lot of, he did a lot of busy work at times. Maybe he was transferring audio from one thing to another, and he was just sitting there thumbing through like a Rolling Stone magazine, and he misread something in an article. It said, like the Gravity Kills, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, what does that mean? And he went back and tried to find Gravity, and he couldn't find it. He misread it. It never existed in the article. It just somehow he read Gravity Kills. And
I'm surprised.
Right. And so of course, Kurt, being an architect, now Kurt took that and just ran with this, this concept of deconstruction and making things from, like we did with samples, and you take something else and mess it up and it makes something else beautiful, and how buildings age, they take on a different aesthetic. And then, Kurt's very deep with all those things, and, much broader thinker when it comes to those things than I am. And so we're like, oh, that's super great. Now, after, can you write that down for me when, somebody asked me about it, because I will never remember this stuff.
Right.
So anyway, that's how the band name came up. It was kind of in passing. It wasn't, we all sat in a room and brainstormed for.
Oh yeah, had that been the case, you'd still be brainstorming, because nobody could ever agree on things like that terribly well.
No, we did brainstorm on something one time, and you're involved in that, by the way. Actually, 2 times we brainstormed, and you're involved in both those times.
Okay, but going back to this though, so now this song is climbing up the local charts.
Yes.
And besides the local charts, it was nationally. I mean, it became a huge. It was like everybody wanted to know what the song "Guilty" was by Gravity Kills, like all the different record labels, everybody.
Right. And you just happened to be in New York. How you came to the picture, I'll tell the story kind of how you told it to us, which was you were in New York City, you were at TVT because you had another band there called Fledgling out of Boston. Mm-hmm. And you just happened to be talking to Tommy, and you're like, what are you doing this weekend? He's like, I'm going to St. Louis. And then, of course, as you tell the story, if you'd said, I'm going to Cleveland or I'm going to Indianapolis, you would have just gone, oh, have a nice trip.
Have a good trip, yeah.
But you had a home in St. Louis, and you have family there. That's where you kind of grew up. Right, you grew up there. And so that perked your interest. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to see this band Gravity Kills. And you're like, I don't know anything about them. And then, he came back sort of to this, to these dominoes falling. Tommy comes into town. By now we're in like February of 95. From October of 94, it gets on the CD. We go to a CD release party. I look like I'm somewhere between. I didn't know whether to dress to be Eddie Vedder or Trent Reznor, or like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How do you know?
Right. How do you know? Right. And so anyway, so now we're in February. Tommy's the first guy to fly in. He flies in. We all go out to dinner. And this is, again, one of these weird things that happened during the story is that we were kind of done for the evening. We worked on a couple more tracks. Goodbye on the Mortal Kombat, the Platinum Records there.
Soundtrack.
Soundtrack. It was on that. But anyway, so he's getting ready to leave, and it's near midnight. We'd spent time together, and he's like, okay, well, I'll talk to you guys soon or whatever. And he gets in his car, and he'd been listening to the local radio while he was in town. So he turns the car on, the radio's still on, and Guilty is playing on the radio. It was almost like we called the station to make it happen, but we didn't. And so he's playing on the radio, and you see him like sort of exhale, like he sat there and he kind of stared down, and they looked up and said, I'll send you paper next week. So now we're getting paper from TVT Records. We had no idea what we were doing. We're four guys, we don't even live in the same town. Kurt gets on this new thing called the internet at the library, finds an attorney, and I'm not going to bring up the attorney's name because you dealt with him, and then you ended up dealing with the attorney that we ended up using. I'm not going to bring up his name, but if anybody you probably have friends in this business that will listen, and when I drop these names, they'll know who he is. He was representing Seal at the time, Alanis Morissette, like big time person. And so anyway, so we call this guy's office. I don't call him. Kurt calls him. Doesn't get through to him, of course, and just says, hey, we got this record deal from TVT Records. We need to talk to an attorney. And so he gets a call back. And now all of a sudden, because he's got relationships with other record labels, and that's how this works, because you're in management, and that managers help people get deals, lawyers help people get deals, and they all, all this stuff is kind of,
very incestuous.
Right. And so now other labels become involved. And then we start getting these phone calls from this young lady named Gloria Butler. And I'm like, who's this person and all this stuff? And like our relationship, I was like, I was a little older than the other guys. So I didn't kind of believe any of this stuff was really happening anyway. I'd been kind of through the Play-Doh Fun Factory a few times with bands and sort of been sniffed around by labels, and nothing ever came of it. So
you were the most jaded of the four of you already.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Doug was completely the opposite. Doug was, I'm ready to go. And just like,
where do I sign?
Right.
Why do we need a lawyer?
And we met for the first time at a restaurant in Clayton. I believe it was called Elote. I think that was the name. It was in Clayton, and it was one of those new trend. It was then we're talking 1995. It was a super trendy, sort of Latino thing.
I remember that. I don't remember the name, but I do remember that. Right. I remember the restaurant.
And I was and I was kind of like this, except I didn't have the white in it when I showed up. And one of the first things you said to me was, you'd look younger if you shaved. And I was like, okay, this, at least this person's shooting straight with me. Right.
Let's fire her before we hire her.
No, and I remember when we hired you, there was another guy that had flown in to town. And so all the stuff's going on, right? We have by the time you're involved, maybe we have 5 songs. We had met another guy had flown me up from Dallas. We met with him. And right before he was flying out and I was flying out, we had to ride to the airport together. Actually, we adjourned ourselves from the meeting, and we walk across the street essentially. And we talked for 3 minutes, and we're like, no, Gloria's the person. And so we had to go in and tell the guy that we weren't going to hire him. And then I had to ride to the airport with the guy. And he was putting me on a plane, but he paid for the plane ticket.
That's so funny. That is so funny. But he was very naughty because he actually told a label that he already had
Right.
you.
That's what,
Which,
right.
yes, he did. What he did was very, very naughty. Had I been involved or not been involved, he should have lost out just for fibbing.
Yeah. So anyway, so at that point, now we have you, but we don't have a contract with you. We kind of
a few different labels that are
yeah, and I think
moving around.
And Capitol and Tag Records had come in, and Reprise was the one that was really, really interested.
Yep.
Out of away, and so everything was kind of going back and forth, and things were I was getting really nervous, and I remember the day I still have a scar on from this finger from the day you called me to tell me that we were finally coming to terms with TVT. And
I have to interrupt a second.
Yes.
Out of all the other labels, I didn't choose TVT.
We did. Right. And the reason,
not that I'm trying to take that off of my shoulder, but you guys did it for a really noble reason. You guys did it because you liked your A&R person.
We did.
You did it because you just felt it. And I think that's really important for any bands that are listening, that your gut kind of tells you what to do.
Yeah. And we bonded with Tommy, and TVT also flew us to New York because Tommy was smart, and he knew that we were already bonding in the first meeting. And of course, they're going to take advantage of that. We could talk about the same bands. We could talk about the same genres. Back then, the first night we met with Tommy in New York, and of course they take us out. We go out to dinner, and then we go out to a bar. We sit around. It was down in Alphabet City, and we sit there. If they even call that part of town anymore. But anyway, so we're sitting there, and he goes to put us in a cab, and he says good night, and we turn around, he's disappeared. It was like he evaporated into the night, and we were like, ooh, he's a vampire or whatever. And at that point, they already knew they had us, because when you walked into TVT Records back then, it was very artist friendly. It was vibey and cool and
very.
It's very
nothing no corporate feeling whatsoever.
No.
I used to love going in there. You just didn't feel like, even if you had to wait for 2 minutes in reception was so pleasant.
Yeah.
It didn't mind. It was just vibey, hip.
Yeah, you sit in that big arched window, and and right off, you had to come off the elevator and come around and come into the reception area, and it was really cool. And of course they walked us around, and everybody else, and we wanted to be. I think we just felt like it was the right place because we were going to be, a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
And and they had the Wax Trax catalog, and we felt like and they had dealt with. They dealt with 9 Inch Nails at the time. Steve still owned Half of Nothing Records at the time. And so all of that played in. And Reprise, Filter just had, that huge record Short Bus with Hey Man, Nice Shot on it. And we felt like, that was just starting to happen. And we felt like, ooh, at this point, if we try to come in on the heels of that, like how, we just felt it was just a gut feeling. So we ended up with TVT, but now still at this point, Gloria, band hasn't played a live show. There's never been a photograph of the band.
Well, you weren't a band. You were not a band.
Officially, we still weren't a band. We didn't have any sort of formal structure or agreement at this point. You were managing not even a real band at this point, but we had a label. Now they're gonna fund us finishing the record. So we go to New York, quit my day job, fly to New York. I don't know how long we were there. We get John Fryer involved. That's a whole nother great story, meeting John Fryer. But anyway, so he never
you have to save that one because that's cool.
Yeah, that's a super funny story. But so we get to finishing the record. So you've gotten TVT to pay for a record. We've been on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, the 7 soundtrack. This is all September. So within a year of us stepping into the room together, not being a band, this is what we are dealing with. So now we finally play our first live show. It was November 2nd, 1995. And
where was that?
That was at the Other World in St. Louis. The room held 1,000 people. We picked that venue, Mississippi Nights, everybody wanted to do the show. And we picked the Other World because they were going to allow us to have the biggest guest list. So
those things are important.
And it's our first show. So we have 900 paid, 100 on the list. We sell out. There were 4 bands. Fledgling was one of them. Bellyfield was one of the other bands. And I always forget the opener. Anyway, and they're going to hate me. They're a St. Louis band, and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. But anyway, so we do the show, but I get to the show, and the first band, or maybe by now Fledgling's actually on. And I'm just standing in the crowd. Like, nobody knows what the band looks like. And they've only heard 2 songs. They heard Guilty, and then if they had the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, they've heard Goodbye. That's it. And not even the version that's on the album. They've sort of demo version.
Right.
And I'm just standing there watching the bands. And we go back and we play the show, and we get through it. It wasn't, it was the first time that we'd ever played in front of people together as a unit. And we were having all kinds of technical problems that nobody knew about. And we got through the show. We played our first album in order.
I remember. We
had a whole 42 minutes of, and then afterwards we had a party at a place called the Hot Locust that the label paid for. And we walked in like it was, again, the bride and groom, and to a wedding reception. And we had family, like everybody that was on the guest list got an invitation to this after party. TVT foot the bill for everything. We still haven't signed with them by now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like they're just they're just writing checks. And I'm sure
back in the days of the honor system, huh?
Yeah, I guess. And I unceremoniously signed our record contract, sitting at Doug Furley's dining room table, virtually in the clothes I slept in. There was no, you envision going to a court, some corporate, some big room with, you got cigars.
Conference room.
Right. It's a conference room. And you're going to have, photographers there, and it's going to be all the stuff. And it wasn't that at all. And so we signed, and then we immediately went on the road for 2 years. We played the first show November 2nd, 1995. I think we played our final show sort of that record. Was a Q101 Halloween show with Our Lady Peace opened for us.
And back at that time, Alex Luke had left KPMT in St. Louis, and he was at Q101, right?
He was.
Chicago.
He was. And then where he was later let go and then named R&R's Programmer of the Year after he had been let go.
Yeah, he figured.
So,
and by the way, when I said back in the days of the honor system, I actually was quite flippant in saying that, because there really wasn't an honor system. You guys were really, you were the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I think it was because there was a sense of urgency, because everybody knew, except for Steve Gottlieb, that, and
who was the head of TVT. He was
right.
TVT.
He was right. Steve Gottlieb, the head of TVT, he was questioning whether it's like this song had been this regional hit, and maybe you and Tommy in a meeting are like, this thing is going to be huge or whatever. You're in there selling the band because you want to extract the most resources out of, that's what your job was, to extract resources out of the label. For everybody's benefit. And so, Steve was like, well, what makes you think it's going to be a hit just because it was a hit in St. Louis?
That's right.
And also the thing I remember about Steve being skeptical was in our first meeting, I was I'm very talkative with you, and you see me in a million social situations where I'm talkative and I'm engaging. I wasn't in that meeting.
I remember.
And, I was just trying to take it all in. And I think it was for multiple reasons, but one, I was a little overwhelmed.
He's that way anyway. He is, or was that way anyway. Mm-hmm. He didn't really, he wasn't very engaging. He wasn't.
Yeah. I think maybe
extract conversation out of him.
I think it was socially awkward.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I think he wanted us to be, because I think Steve always wanted us he always wanted to be our buddy in a way when he, at times. And I get multiple stories about that. We could have 8 parts of this podcast, but anyway,
don't even say that. Don't say that loosely, because we don't even have that much time now. We have like another 10 minutes. So it's, so yeah,
try to finish this story.
Will be 8 parts. It will totally be 8 parts.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot how much there is here.
Yeah. And so we finished the record. We finally signed the deal. They start putting us on shows. We start getting, we sort of go on that, radio station festival circuit.
Radio shows,
these radio shows for about 2 years, and really for 96, 97 into 98, really, it's almost 3 years that we were doing that. And,
which is pretty incredible, because the only people that do radio shows, for those of you that don't know, are bands that are on the radio and bands that are doing well on the radio.
Yeah, we got lucky, but you were working radio all the time, and we had a small staff.
But it wasn't lucky. It was a great. That Guilty was a great radio track, and you followed it with other radio tracks. I mean, not everybody. I guess that's what a one-hit wonder is, a band that has one great radio track, the end. And that's not what this was. It was just great tracks, period.
Yeah, that first record, and I think you said it, I'll try to if I can paraphrase, because you and I've had that discussion before about the first record. It was the perfect storm. It was everything. It didn't just fall into place. It was, falling is not a strong enough word to how this record came together.
No.
And it
was magic. It was magic.
And bands making a record, for any musicians out there, they all know this. You're trying to capture a moment in time. And we captured a full year of time that our careers were happening to the world in real time. It wasn't like we record this record and then the label took 18 months to figure out how to work it, and then we released the thing, and now we're going to start putting you on the road. Everything was happening and you talk about the honor system. I think everybody knew that we needed to get this album and this track out in the world as quickly as we could. And back then, because the paradigm hadn't shifted yet, you wanted to put it on a collection, a locked collection of songs that they had to buy with the song they wanted. If that happened now, who knows what won.
Oh yeah.
Our band doesn't exist now, but 2, right. We have the one song, they throw it out there. If you're not, and they would just get it out there. They wouldn't wait for the album to happen. We didn't have a picture. I look at pictures, and I've got a bunch of the first photo shoot with Jill Greenberg, and we're stiff, and again, we're like deer headlights, everybody. And we're trying to look cool, but what does that mean? And we're just dorks anyway.
You did back then. You did. Yeah, everybody was stiff, but everybody is for their first photo shoot. And you weren't born with the ability to know how to do a photo shoot. That comes with experience, and it comes with with time.
And Gloria, I think we were. I stay in touch with these people, like Alex or Jim McGuinn, or you and I touch base from time to time. John Perrone, all these people that we mentioned, Tommy Sayre, because everybody recognizes how unique that story and how the band existed at all. Them being a part of it. It's not a story that happens every day, or maybe every 5 years or every 10 years. It's just
this was definitely the exception. It was, and I'm not saying this with bias, even though there is bias, but it was just, again, a moment in time that could never really be captured again. It was just, hopefully when this comes out on vinyl, it will be sort of captured again, but just the whole thing, how we came together with TBT, how we came together, how just everything about it was just pretty outstanding and pretty, I just got chills. It just couldn't happen today. And for so many reasons. And I'm like, we're going to do this in the next one. I want to start our next our part 2 with this.
Okay.
About my regrets here. Like, I can't believe I don't know Willow. I can't believe the time that's gone that, we were a family.
Yeah.
And how all of a sudden we weren't. And I could only blame myself for that. I don't know how or why. The time just goes. And all of a sudden it's 17 years later and you've got a grown up as a daughter.
Yeah.
And that just freaks me out.
I think
It makes me sad. Freaks me out. It makes me sad.
I agree. I think what happened, Gloria, maybe in my, in hindsight, is things when the wheels came off, it was very painful for a lot. And I don't think that when,
it was for me too.
Right. Very few bands go out like Black Sabbath.
No, that's a real exception.
Right. That's what I mean. And, very few bands have a member pass away and have tributes on 2 continents.
Yeah.
And so when it happens, it's painful, and you try to I think you try to step away from everything that was associated with that pain for a little while. Like, I didn't pick up a guitar.
I think it's part of the grieving process.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I didn't pick up a guitar and even look at a guitar. I had a guitar that I thought was really cool, or my wife at the time thought was cool. We put it over in the living room, and I just never would pick it up. I didn't want to have anything to do with music. I didn't want to have anything to do with, the guys. And, and then as you heal and you can start having these conversations without ripping, have to get to a point where the scabs don't, you're not ripping Band-Aids off anymore. And I think maybe because it happened so quickly and ended, we talk about regrets. There are fatal errors that bands make. And as everything went right in the beginning, there were fatal errors made along the way that also started pulling the thread out.
Of course, absolutely. And do you know what? One of these, maybe our episode 5 of us together, we should have everybody on. Then it would be a real therapy session.
Oh my God. Yeah. I haven't seen 2 of the guys for 10 years. This is the last time we played a show was 2012 with the Urge in St. Louis. But we are, but we can talk about all this stuff later. We are talking about doing something around the final release and maybe a one and done, or maybe calling.
It should be a handful and done.
Yeah,
or it should just be a handful and not even use the word done.
Right. Because I think I'd like to go visit Joe Shanahan in Chicago and do the Metro. Joe, I'll make sure that I post this on his Facebook page, because I think that's still where our most Spotify plays are. And
it's still, this still works in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
It's still, it's that kind of market.
Yeah. The last
Does Metro still exist?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say, I did get to do the Pigface reunion, 25 year in Chicago at the House of Blues.
Yes.
And we'll leave it with this. When we happened, we were really a pop band to a lot of the Chicago wax track scene.
Yeah.
I was so vindicated that night in Chicago, listening to a sold out crowd at the House of Blues in 2016 at a Pigface show, at the top of their lungs, scream, "Hey, hey, hey, I'm guilty."
How awesome is that?
Mm-hmm. And I walked off in my head going, "Thank you, Chicago. That was awesome. But you guys hated my fucking guts in 1996. Yeah,
That's so funny. That's funny. We're going to say goodbye, but will you do me a favor when we finish?
Yeah.
Will you scribble down notes of things that we didn't get you today? I'm going to do the same thing to make sure that when we are together again, we know what we're picking up.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's a lot to this. And there's a lot, I think, that your viewers, people who listen to you might, because all these record industry people. And we've got some really interesting, I think, again, sort of out of the box stories that sort of happened.
Oh, no, totally.
That some people would totally relate to. And we could,
Yeah.
probably name drop 1,000 names, and it'd be super funny to engage.
Yeah, this is
people.
just fun. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun reliving this because I haven't done it forever. And I'm going to FaceTime you when I get in the car.
Okay.
So I could say hi to Willow. Can I do that?
Yeah, she's actually, my living room's over here. She's looking at me now. She hasn't been
say
feeling
hi.
well.
Have her come say hi.
Well, she's not feeling well, but
Oh.
when we FaceTime, I'll walk my phone
Okay.
over and,
Okay,
oh, wait,
okay.
you gonna come over here and say hi? You want to? You want to get your glasses on? It's my 17-year-old. You could pick her out of a lineup and say, who's the singer for Gravity Kills? Who's his daughter? Here's Willow.
Hi, cute are you? Oh, I should have been a second. I should have been like a grandma to you. Oh.
Yeah, she can't hear, but she said she should have been a grandmother to you. So, but anyway.
It's never too late. You're gorgeous. And we have to do this more often, privately and more often. Okay.
Yeah. And say hi to, all your boys.
I will,
and your,
I will.
you got all these real grandbabies that I'm, keeping up with, from following your eldest. And it's good to see that, life is working out well for all of them.
Okay, now that we're all very teary. Anyway, nice to finally meet you, sweetheart. And I look forward to doing it in person. We got to get you and your dad.
If we do a show, you have to come.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'll be there.
Yeah. So.
Okay, signing off. And so I'll text you about part 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
On Tuesday. No, we'll figure it out. Okay.
Okay.
Love you loads, and I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, Gloria.
Bye. Bye. Bye.